So after day one of the first test at Lords between England and South Africa, it's time to ask George. So Dave Studland asks, is the South African pace bowling attack the best in the world?
It's right up there. I think loads of attacks would have looked really, really good today because it was really helpful conditions. But they've got everything, haven't they? They've got pace, they've got variety, they've got left arm, they've got height. They're really good. But don't you think India, Australia, even the West Indies and New Zealand would have looked fantastic out there today? England too, actually. So I think they were very bowler-friendly conditions.
Did they bowl as well as they should have?
Oh, they bowled well, I think. Whether England batted as well as they should have done, they probably didn't, did they? But they were a really good bowling attack. I mean, it's not ridiculous to ask the question, and I'm not saying no either.
Ron asks, should the ECB extend refunds for anything less than 45 overs bowled?
45? Yeah. Well, of course they should. If you don't get something which you paid for, you should be refunded. Of course you should. Build a ground with a bloody roof, for God's sake. Let's just have it.
And should they
have there been questions about the roof? There haven't, have there?
There were one or two. Perhaps tongue-in-cheek ones that came.
I don't mean it tongue-in-cheek. Sell this place. Look at it. £2.5 billion. You can do a lot with £2.5 billion. You can pay your gas bill with £2.5 billion. You could move to Hyde Park.
Maybe in a couple of years we won't be able to pay your gas bill.
No, right. On this, the area that is currently the Winter Wonderland. That's where the footprint for a new ground could be. There are plans. They reckon it would cost £1 billion. This is exclusive. They reckon it would cost £1 billion. You'd have £1.5 billion to spare. Why not do it? A new tradition. I mean, it would be a shame to leave this old place, but you can't be sitting around in this day and age watching it rain. I mean, it's just... These things are not good for a format that's, desperately trying to survive in a modern world. It's anachronistic to be sitting here watching it rain. People are spending, obviously, hundreds of pounds on tickets, but millions of pounds on the broadcasting rights. So, of course people should get their money back if they don't get to see. I think, what is the cut-off at the moment? Is it 30 overs? Does that ring a bell? But of course you should, and as you should with slow over rates, you have to respect the customer more. And
just on sitting around and watching, or standing around and watching it rain, we were watching the fans sort of taking cover and watching while they were being told nothing, as well.
Well, they won't be.
2.5 hours went by. There wasn't a single announcement. There was no movement on the outfield.
It was raining a lot though.
But there was no. Perhaps there should be. Perhaps there should be sort of more communication. That maybe today is not the best example, but previously.
Generally, of course you're right. But I mean, to be fair to Lords, the MCC, if they had said, as you can see, it's raining, they might have been criticised for that as well. So look, it's very unfortunate, particularly this summer. I don't know when the last time we saw rain. I mean, you get that nice smell of petrichor. That was the only nice thing about the day, really. But
that's me, actually.
You smell petrichor.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just a natural thing.
I wonder what that was.
Yeah.
So it's really frustrating, but it just, there are grounds. The Docklands or Marvel Stadium in Melbourne has a roof. We watch games there all the time. We play Big Bash games there. It could be done. Lords has moved twice before. It's not that ridiculous. This is the problem. Tradition gets in the way a lot. I think people sometimes think I'm a traditionalist because I like the county championship and I like 18 counties and all the rest of it. There's a reason for those. There's a practical reason for those. There's a practical reason for wanting a roof. You could build a 50,000 seat stadium with a roof. You could have it in the heart of London. All sorts of practical difficulties, make no bones about it. But you actually could, and I don't think any other club could do it. Because, the Oval, for example, don't own their land. It's owned by the Duchy of Cornwall, isn't it? I think that's right. So I don't know that any other club could raise the capital to do it. And so the MCC have an opportunity to be a world leader. And that's what they should be about, isn't it? I really mean it. I know people think I've gone insane. Well, they might be right, but I do mean it.
Let's move on. Daniel King asks, how many more chances will Zach Crawley get?
Thousands, apparently. Paul Collins just done a press conference where they said, well, we don't actually want him to be consistent. Is that what he said? Something like that. I don't know. I was more worried about Alex Lee's. Not me to change the question, but I thought Alex Lee's innings was awful. And I thought Zach Crawley's was actually all right, and he got a good ball, and he got several good balls. That's not to say that he's not a worry, because he can't keep on going on not scoring any runs. But Alex Lee's looked lucky to get 5. I thought that the shot he was out to looked as if he was playing by numbers. This one might be a full ball, so I'm going to drive it before it was bowled. You've been missed already on 1. Well, whether it's a chance or not, he edged one over the slips on 1. I think he's played on the flattest wickets of any England opener could ever expect to bat on. He's averaging 24-ish. I don't know. They're a real worry. And while England are definitely right to, put faith in the side and not criticise them publicly, that clearly wouldn't help. There does have to be, at some stage, a sense that it's not harder to get selected than it is to be dropped. I mean, it's almost impossible to be dropped from this side at the moment. You wonder what he'd have to do.
Play worse than Zach Crawley, I guess.
Well, much worse. I mean, anyway, but it doesn't mean that they're not looking at making changes just because they're talking very positively publicly about it, because obviously they don't want to sow any seeds of doubt. But I don't, the time to make a change was before this series, wasn't it? You went back to county cricket, you didn't score any runs. I would have thought that was the time to make a change, and at some stage you wonder if you're actually damaging his self-confidence. I'm a big Zach Crawley fan, I really do believe in him. I actually thought he looked quite good until he was out today for 9. But at some stage, what long-term damage do you do? And there are other options.
Danny asks, should England have picked the Lions team instead?
No.
Cricket Analytics asks, on a similar vein, can someone in the press please ask BMAC, we'll return to that, if he's heard of James Vince?
Okay, so James Vince again isn't a ridiculous suggestion, but James Vince has played, 13 tests, averages, 25-ish? That's about right, off the top of my head. He hasn't, it's not as if he hasn't had any chances. I mean, he strikes me as quite a similar player to Zach Crawley in a way. So yeah, he's not a ridiculous suggestion because he's clearly got a lot of good attributes. He has time. You might want to look at Ben Duckett though, as well. It seems to me that he's gone back to county cricket, worked out a way to play, become quite consistent. Look, there are lots of options, and James Vince is one of them. But let's not forget that he did have quite an extended opportunity.
Warwickshire County Cricket Club.
Whatever happened to
I
them?
think we've heard of them. Would you rather be a lemon or a lime?
They don't ask if I want to be a pear. I might want to be a pear. I think that lemon or lime. I don't know. I think a lime so that I can make myself into a mojito, because there's quite a lot of rum hanging about in this system already.
And finally, Cave Gaming 786.
That's a catchy name. Is that an advert you've just given? But yeah,
Christened,
whatever.
I imagine. Which of the many T20 leagues will be the first to get bankrupt?
Well, I think it's already happened, hasn't it? Well, at least one South African iteration of the T20 league's already gone, hasn't it? Well, it has, isn't it?
Well,
So,
there's a few others before that, isn't there?
yeah, so there have been quite a few. There have been all sorts of leagues where players haven't been paid and stuff. So, which will be the next might be the more pertinent question. And I don't know the answer, but possibly, the Big Bash is in trouble. It's not going to go bankrupt, is it? Because it's got a different ownership structure to the others. But
what about, sadly, perhaps Sri Lanka?
Well, Sri Lanka have struggled before, haven't they? So yeah, that's another example. I don't know what the ownership structures of them all are, to be honest, but it would appear that 2 leagues are going to be heavily financed to be in the same window as the Big Bash. Now, I'm not saying it's going to become bankrupt exactly, but you would think that it's going to be diminished as a product. It's all recoverable. Yeah, it's a transitional phase and things presumably will settle down. But it depends what people want. I still love the Big Bash. I think it's got the raw attributes to be fantastic. Waking up in wintry England and turning on the TV and seeing the blue skies and at its best quick wickets and fast bowlers and all the rest of it is still wonderfully exciting. I still think it's got unique selling points compared to other places. But you'd have to say that if you got it right in South Africa, that could be brilliant as well. and it looks like they're investing huge amounts of money in that league. But I don't know, because you're the audience. You tell us. Do you want to just watch the same players playing in a slightly different backdrop all year round into T20? I don't know. I mean, I like T20, but is that it? And personally, I couldn't give a toss for most of those teams. I mean, how do you decide which team to choose if they're just named after a corporate entity? Why would I care? What about the Coca-Cola whatevers against the Pepsi whatevers? Why would I care? Why would there be any... So I think it's got a huge problem, and I still really like international sport, where, you know, there's, I don't know, there's a reason to identify, I suppose, with the team and all the rest of it, but you tell me, maybe it's international sport that's in more trouble. Maybe that's the problem. But I don't know, you know, right now, if you were in Australia and you were looking after the Big Bash, you would think you had some real headaches ahead.